Wealth doesn't last unless it's taught. That's the unspoken truth passed down quietly through generations of old money families. While lottery winners and overnight millionaires often lose their fortunes in a single generation, old money dynasties preserve theirs for centuries. The difference? Education, not just in schools, but in the home. If you've ever wondered how the Rockefellers, Rothschilds, or even aristocratic European families have managed to sustain their empires, the answer lies in how they teach their children about money and inheritance from an early age. And in today's video, we're going to uncover the inheritance lessons that old money families drill into their children. Lessons about privilege, responsibility, and legacy. Stick with us until the end, because these insights may completely change how you think about teaching your own children about wealth. But before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because here on the Luxury Lane, we reveal the hidden codes of the wealthy that you won't find in textbooks or financial blogs. For most families, wealth is seen as personal. My paycheck, my savings, my retirement plan. But for old money, wealth is never just about one lifetime. It's about lifetimes stacked on top of each other. Old money parents remind their children constantly that the fortune isn't really theirs. Instead, they're stewards of a resource meant to last hundreds of years. This mindset, sometimes called the long view, shapes how young heirs are raised. From childhood, they're told, this isn't just money for you, it's security for your children and grandchildren. Your responsibility is not to spend it, but to preserve it. It's not surprising, then, the dynasties emphasize restraint. In fact, many heirs are taught that dipping into the principle of a trust is taboo, almost like breaking a sacred rule. Instead, they're guided to live off investment income, ensuring that the family capital remains intact. This lesson alone explains why so many old money families still thrive while others vanish. Teaching kids that wealth is not a windfall but a trust, something to be safeguarded, creates a foundation for generational continuity. How do you explain something as complex as inheritance to a child? Old money families don't wait until adulthood. They start early using stories, metaphors, and daily practices to make abstract ideas real. For example, a child might be told that the family estate is like a garden. Their ancestors planted the seeds, their parents watered and nurtured the soil. And now it's their job to keep the garden alive, not just for themselves, but for everyone who will come after. Other families use allowances to introduce responsibility. Instead of giving children endless resources, parents often attach conditions. A fixed sum per week or month, regardless of family wealth. Rules on how it should be split between spending, saving, and donating. Clear consequences if the child overspends. Through this, money isn't seen as a toy, it becomes a tool. By the time these children reach their teenage years, they've already practiced budgeting, investing, and philanthropy on a small scale. If there's one mantra you'll hear repeated in old money households, it's this: with wealth comes responsibility. This isn't just about money management, it's about character. Children of privilege are constantly reminded that their advantages are not simply for personal enjoyment. They're expected to support charitable causes, uphold the family's reputation, avoid behavior that could bring shame to the family name. Think about it. Scandals, arrogance, or careless spending don't just affect the individual, they can damage the family brand. And in old money circles, reputation is currency. For this reason, many families build in service traditions. Children might be required to volunteer, work summer jobs despite their wealth, or participate in philanthropic projects. The lesson is clear: wealth without responsibility is wasteful, but wealth with responsibility can shape legacies. Now here's the paradox. When children grow up surrounded by wealth, how do you keep them from becoming spoiled or entitled? This is one of the greatest challenges of old money, and one of the key reasons they've developed very deliberate systems. One common strategy is delayed access. Even though an heir may technically inherit millions, they rarely gain full control at age 18. Trusts are structured to release funds gradually, sometimes only at 25, 30, or even 40. This ensures that by the time they can access real money, they've matured enough to handle it. Another approach is merit before money. Some families require children to earn their own income before benefiting from inheritance. They might need to graduate from college, start a career, or prove themselves responsible before accessing family wealth. The message is crystal clear. The inheritance is a safety net, not a hammock. It's there to protect you from ruin, not to prevent you from striving. Financial literacy as a family value. In most households, conversations about money are avoided. Parents might say, "We can't afford that," or "Money doesn't grow on trees," but rarely do they explain how money works. Old money takes the opposite approach. Financial literacy isn't optional. It's a core family value. Children are introduced early to topics like compound interest, investments, real estate, and even tax planning. Of course, these aren't taught in stiff lectures. They're woven into family life. A grandfather might bring a child along to a board meeting, not to participate, but to observe. A mother might show her daughter the difference between spending on luxuries and investing in assets. Even something as simple as explaining the stock market over breakfast becomes a teaching moment. By the time these children become adults, they aren't just heirs, they're financially literate stewards. They know how to read balance sheets, understand trusts, and differentiate between consumption and capital. Family meetings and the "we" mentality. Another critical tool used by old money families is the family meeting. These aren't casual dinners. They're formal gatherings where the wealth's purpose, strategy, and future are discussed. Children, even at young ages, are included. They hear their parents and grandparents debate philanthropy projects, review investments, and talk about family values. The effect? Children grow up with a "we" mentality, not a "me" mentality. Instead of thinking, "This is my money," they begin to think, "This is our legacy." They see themselves as one link in a long chain. The family name, the family reputation, the family fortune. It all matters more than individual whims. That sense of unity becomes a shield against reckless spending and entitlement. No one wants to be the person who breaks a chain that's lasted for centuries. Philanthropy as training for responsibility. Philanthropy is another lesson in inheritance that old money takes seriously. From an early age, children are taught that wealth isn't only for private enjoyment, it must serve a public good. Many families establish charitable foundations not just to donate, but to give heirs hands-on experience. Children may sit on junior boards where they review proposals from nonprofits, allocate funds, and see firsthand how giving can change communities. This isn't only about generosity, it's a training ground. Philanthropy teaches decision-making, accountability, and humility. It shows heirs the impact of money when directed wisely, and of course, it reinforces reputation. A family seen as generous and civic-minded earns social capital, which in many ways is just as valuable as financial capital. Preparing heirs for leadership. Wealth alone is fragile. It must be guided by leadership. That's why old money families often groom their children, not just to inherit, but to lead. This might mean encouraging careers in law, finance, or politics. It might mean giving heirs a role in managing family businesses. Some families even assign young adults small projects, like managing a property or overseeing an investment portfolio as a way of preparing them for larger responsibilities. The key idea: inheritance isn't passive. It demands active stewardship. A fortune unmanaged will disappear. A fortune guided with discipline can endure for centuries. Storytelling as a teaching tool. Here's something that's often overlooked. Old money families don't just pass down assets, they pass down stories. At family dinners, you might hear about the ancestor who built the business from nothing, the one who survived a financial crash, or the one who founded a charitable institution. These stories become legends, living reminders of what it took to create the wealth and what's required to sustain it. For children, this isn't just history, it's identity. They grow up believing, I come from a family that works hard. I come from a family that gives back. I come from a family that thinks in centuries, not seasons. That identity creates pride but also pressure. No child wants to be the one who dishonors the stories or wastes the sacrifices of their ancestors. Teaching privilege without arrogance. Perhaps the hardest balance is teaching children that they are privileged, without letting that privilege become arrogance. Old money approaches this with subtlety. Yes, children may live in grand estates or attend elite schools, but parents are careful to instill humility. For example, children are reminded to treat staff with respect. They're expected to work summer jobs, sometimes in entry-level positions. They're often discouraged from flaunting wealth in public. In fact, the phrase quiet wealth applies here. Old money heirs are taught that true privilege doesn't need to be broadcast. It's something carried with dignity, not displayed for validation. Why most fortunes disappear, and how old money avoids it. There's a famous saying, shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. It means that the first generation builds wealth, the second enjoys it, and the third squanders it, leaving the fourth to start over. Old money is painfully aware of this pattern. That's why they work so hard to break it. Every lesson, from financial literacy to philanthropy, is designed to prevent the family from falling into the cycle of rise and ruin. By teaching children to view inheritance as responsibility, by delaying access to money, by instilling humility, and by reinforcing the we mentality, they tilt the odds in their favor. And that's why some families thrive for centuries while others disappear within decades. Legacy over luxury. For old money, the concept of inheritance goes far beyond material wealth. It's not just about the mansion, the trust, or the private art collection. It's about legacy. Children are told again and again that they are part of something larger. Their job is not to chase luxury, but to maintain dignity, preserve the family's values, and carry forward opportunities for generations to come. That's why heirs often feel more pressure than freedom. Yes, the money is there, but with it comes expectation. To contribute, to lead, to give, and to protect. The luxury is secondary. The legacy is everything. The unwritten curriculum. If you ask most old money heirs, they'll tell you that the real inheritance isn't just money. It's the unwritten curriculum they were raised with. It's the quiet reminders over dinner. It's the repetition of family mottos. It's the rituals of family meetings, charity galas, and understated etiquette. It's the lifelong awareness that they're part of a chain that began long before them and will continue long after. This curriculum isn't in textbooks or schools, but it's drilled into them all the same. It's why they often approach money with a sense of calm, caution, and continuity rather than urgency or indulgence. Why these lessons matter for everyone? Now here's the interesting part. You don't need to be born into old money to use these lessons. Any parent, any family, can teach children about stewardship instead of spending, about legacy instead of luxury, about responsibility instead of entitlement. If you pass down a value system along with whatever wealth you build, whether that's a modest nest egg or a family business, you're already breaking the shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves curse. You're already thinking generationally, and that in the end is what separates fleeting fortunes from lasting legacies. Because wealth without wisdom disappears.